So this is the second part of interpersonal communication and culture, or culture and interpersonal communication for my interpersonal communication class. We're talking about culture today, and we just finished talking about what culture is and what diversity is. And we're going to get straight back to the PowerPoint. Here we go. We finished talking about that. Now we're going to look at what I call common principles when we think about culture and communication. So culture shapes our perception and teaches us ways to communicate that are preferred. Okay, just think about that before I even go to the next piece. It shapes what we see. I like to think of it as the culture acts like a filter. The different of us have different, like a lens. Those of you ever had a camera where you could change the lens. You could have a wide angle lens, a narrow lens, a long lens, right? That it's like a lens. Culture acts like a lens. It makes us focus on certain things and not focus on other things. We pick and choose. There's a famous philosopher rhetorician, last name of Burke, Kenneth Burke, and he said that when we choose a piece of reality, by choosing it, we are also deflecting one. We are not choosing something else. Keep this in mind with your culture. When you choose a focus on something, you are then also choosing not to see something else. I want you to keep this in mind with all the discussions we're going to have this week. And possibly why people have blocks to seeing certain things. Because our culture tells us what to focus on. Okay. Socialization. There we go. It's defined as a process of learning about cultural norms and expectations. And right now I'm going to go there. This week we have a discussion about racism. Now I'm going to acknowledge that I'm a white woman talking about racism who benefits from lots of white privilege. I'm not even clear on how much I benefit. I'll totally admit to that. But I'm clear that I do benefit. Okay? The things that don't happen to me because I'm white, right? The things that I get because I'm white, that's harder to see. Why is that harder to see? Because I live in a culture that cultural norms and expectations, it's based on merit. If you just work hard, you can get whatever you want. Well, if there's structural racism, meaning certain people, because of the color of their skin or their culture, are left out of that equation, then it doesn't benefit everyone. But if you're not part of that, you don't know. You can't even see it until you start to listen to other people tell their stories. Okay, I'm bringing this up for a reason, because this is what you need to know, no matter what color skin you have or what background you come from, that your culture has shaped the way you see, and that is your truth, but is not the truth, and it's not everybody's truth, but it's the way you see, and you have a choice to some degree. You can choose to broaden your horizon. Okay, that's what we'll be talking about this week, is looking at our culture makes us choose certain things. And there's a lot of beautiful things about culture, but also can limit us as well. Let's keep going. So socialization establishes norms. Culture establishes norms and rules for individuals to follow. Okay, here's some just simple ones. Punctuality. Who's an authority? Deferring to authority. Certain cultures are more likely to defer to authority than others. Right? How you're taught at home, what you're expected to at home. If you haven't had an authority in your home and you were the authority, my guess is you probably have harder times listening to authority figures because you have been on your own, being your own authority for a long time. That would be normal. Okay? Clothing, how we're supposed to dress. If you look at the 1950s, the United States, how men and women were dressed is very specific. Very, very, and we're talking about like in the general masses, okay, not like on the outsides. 1950s, not 60s, 1950s. How women were supposed to look, and how men were supposed to look. You can watch Mad Men, the TV show. Mad Men is like in the 1950s. It goes up into the 70s, but how people dress were very specific according to their gender. Look, we're still the same human beings in a different era, and we've learned that you can express yourself. It's okay. We've decided it's okay to express yourself in different ways. You don't have to stick to these molds. Well, we call them molds, but if you lived in the 1950s, you might think that's just the right thing to do. That's the way it is. You don't have any idea of thinking outside the box. Let's add this. You don't even know there's a box. Let's go back to racism. If you have white privilege, people don't know they have white privilege because they're in the box. They don't even know it. They haven't been exposed to knowing that they're in a box. Unless someone that doesn't have white privilege, you listen to the story of you're white. If you're white, listening to a person who's not white, and you listen to what they go through, and you listen to them, how they perceive you. These are ways out of, I don't know what we're ever going to cure. Well, I think at some point we're not going to have racism, but we have a long way to go. So all of this goes to racism and culture, right? All of that, they're all interlinked. The problem with racism, though, it's also linked to poverty. It's linked to, structural economic depression. It's linked to a lot of things that keep people down. It's oppressive. So, and there are certain aspects of people's cultures that are oppressive, right? I gave you the example earlier about in certain tribes in Africa, and I think it's, again, less than it was in the past because people have thought, maybe this isn't a good idea. But in certain tribes in Africa, they practice female circumcision. And if you're a female, look it up. I'm not going to go into detail on this YouTube video about that. But it's pretty nasty. And you pretty much don't have any sexual pleasure as a woman. Right? And then male, I talked about that, and I don't want to leave men out of the equation. But what does that do? And then what does it say about sex is just procreation? See what I'm saying? Is the point is not every cultural practice is healthy or good, but if you're in that culture, you think you're doing the right thing. Okay, let's keep going. Communication behaviors are unique to each culture. They are. Language. This is, how I say communication is a driver of all relationships? Well, language is the driver to culture. When you take away someone's language, you are beginning to take away their culture. Here's a perfect example. We're going to talk about language at another point in the future in this class. But here's an interesting thing about the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis came out of, and I'll talk about that at another point in the semester, came out, these are two sociologists, anthropologists type of people, probably anthropologists, and they were studying the Hopi language. And what they learned about the Hopi language, now the language shapes, we talked about culture shaping reality, language shapes what we see, what we pick out, what we focus on, because language names things. It isn't just about us talking, it names things. We could name, like I have my Gumby here. Why did they name Gumby Gumby? I don't know. They just did. So we call it Gumby. This could be anything. It's some little weird plastic thing, little figure. And some of you might not even know who Gumby is. Why is this? Why do we call it teddy bear? This is for a teddy bear from when I was a little kitty. Why do we call this a teddy bear? Well, it looks like a bear, but it's not really looks like a bear, how bears are. Right? Language names and defines things, and then we respond to those things, right? When you saw the teddy bear and then I told you it was when I had one as a little girl, how does that make you feel? Like, oh, Miss Brennan, that's so cute, right? Because that's the way we think about little girls. Okay, so language, when you take away someone's language, this is why it's so important as Americans, I think, that we should have more than one language spoken. Now, should we have a common language where we can all communicate? Sure thing. That's the best way to get things done and make sense. But should we respect that other languages want to be spoken? Absolutely. Language is the key to someone's culture. And the people who don't know it, it's on us to learn it. And plus, it's good for us. It's a healthy thing to be able to cross into other cultures in a respectful manner and to be able to speak their language. It's a good thing. All right. I pulled this from the internet a while ago and I keep looking at it and I find it interesting. Now, I'm not going to make a big deal out of it, but I just find it interesting, and it's probably very prejudiced for the East Coast because notice how they have a lot more detail over there than us Westerners. But the point is this, that even within our own country, United States, there are different ways of doing things, right? You can leave California. I don't think in this class I've talked about when I visited Tennessee, the South, that is the South, and I learned all kinds of things about the South, right? And how the South deals with the South, by the way, all I saw were African Americans, Black people, and white people, mostly in Tennessee. I didn't see any other cultures. I miss my Mexican brothers and sisters, right? My Latinx cousins here. And I say that with a full heart. I grew up in California. I almost feel like I was married to a man who was Mexican, but I almost feel like I'm half Mexican because that is a very strong part of my culture. The foods I eat, how I behave, what colors I like, what kinds of things I do. I'm very connected that. I'm not Mexican, but I'm connected to that culture. That's not happening in the South. Why? That's not what they're about. Right? They're about a whole other thing. The South has the argument about should we continue to have these statues that represent the past or should we not? We have opinions on that on the West, but not the same. It's different if you've lived there for generations, right? That's the point I'm trying to make. That regionally how we see affects what we focus on and what we care about. Okay, we're going to stop here. I have a lot to say in this particular lecture, so we're going to stop here and we're going to go on to the next one. Okay, you guys, hang in with me. This is fun, isn't it?